My parents took out a loan in my name to send my sister abroad and told me I wouldn't have used the money well anyway. So I waited, and what I did next collapsed their fantasy. When I was a senior in high school, I found out my parents had taken out a $22,000 loan in my name. The way I found out was simple. A letter arrived from a loan servicing company. Big envelope, no return name, and inside, a breakdown of my payment delinquency. At first, I thought it was some phishing scam. I didn't even have a credit card at the time. But when I called the number, gave them the reference ID, and they confirmed my full name, address, social security number, and birth date, it hit different. I was 17. The lady on the phone said, "Sir, this account has been open for nearly a year." And I just sat there. The rest of the conversation is blurry. Something about missed payments, accumulating interest, credit damage. I don't remember what I said, only that I hung up, went straight to the kitchen, and dropped the envelope in front of my mom. She didn't look shocked. She didn't deny it. She just sighed. "We were going to tell you eventually," she said, already defensive. My dad came in from the living room like he'd been waiting for his cue. "It was for your sister's program," he said, like that explained everything. "She got into the one in Milan. It was a one-time thing." My sister, Sophia, was 17 months older than me. Fashion major, drama queen, always the one they thought would make it big. When she got accepted into some expensive study abroad program, they acted like she'd been crowned Queen of Europe. I looked at them and said, "You took a loan in my name." Mom's tone shifted. "You weren't even planning on college. You were talking about taking a year off to figure things out. We didn't want the money sitting there for no reason." "What money?" I asked, louder than I meant to. "There was never my money. You used my name." Dad got irritated then. "Lower your voice. We'll pay it off. It's not like it ruined anything." That line stuck with me. It's not like it ruined anything. Except it kind of did. I spent the next few days trying to figure out what the hell to do. Tried getting legal advice online, but everyone said the same thing. Unless I pressed charges, nothing would move quickly. And suing your own parents isn't exactly a walk in the park when you're still living under their roof, eating their food, and not even old enough to sign a lease. So I didn't explode. I didn't go nuclear. I waited. I finished high school. Got a job doing IT support at a small chain of clinics. Nothing glamorous, but it paid decent, and more importantly, I got certified fast. Worked 40 hours a week. Lived quiet. Kept my head down. Meanwhile, Sophia came back from Milan with new clothes, a fake accent, and zero gratitude. She never once acknowledged the loan. Drove around in a used Mini our parents bought her as a welcome home gift. Said things like, "You should visit Italy sometime. It would change you." My credit score was in the toilet. I had to get a prepaid phone plan because every normal provider denied me. Couldn't get a real credit card. Couldn't co-sign on an apartment. I was 19 with a full-time job and still living in the basement. One night, about a year into my job, I overheard my parents bragging to friends in the kitchen. "Sophia's going to be famous," Mom said. "She just needs the right launch pad." We always knew she was the one worth investing in. They said it like I wasn't even a footnote in their story. That's when I knew for sure they weren't sorry. So I kept waiting. I got promoted, then promoted again. I used every bonus to pay down the debt they'd racked up in my name. Quietly, relentlessly. 2 years went by, then 3. I built myself a side hustle helping small businesses modernize their systems. Started getting referrals. Invested in an LLC. Hired 2 contractors. I wasn't rich, but I was smart. Methodical. Disciplined. At 23, I was running a small but steady tech consultancy. Still no credit cards, but I'd paid down the bulk of the original loan. The balance was mine now, legally and financially. I wasn't about to play the victim forever. I just wanted it cleared on my terms. Then one morning, Sophia called. I didn't even know she had my number. She was panicked, said she needed help updating her portfolio site. Her laptop crashed and she had an emergency pitch with a big-name fashion brand. She didn't say please. She didn't say thank you. Just assumed I'd drop everything. I said sure. Come by this weekend. She did. And that's when I saw it. A new MacBook. Latest model. Custom phone case with her name engraved. Designer shoes. She smelled like a Dior catalog. While I installed her software, she scrolled through Instagram, posting selfies and tagging some influencer brand. "You really turned into my personal IT guy," she laughed. I smiled, nodded, and said nothing. She had no idea what was coming. I didn't go to family dinners for a long time, mostly because I was working nights and weekends trying to fix what they broke, but partly because I didn't trust myself to sit across from them and not say something that would shatter the fake peace they'd built around Sophia's Golden Girl narrative. But after Sophia came by for help with her laptop, I noticed something I hadn't before. She was nervous. Not just stressed, but jittery beneath the surface. Her usual loud, look at me energy was thinly spread. She talked a mile a minute about her pitch with some LA-based design firm, but her eyes kept darting to her phone, checking for messages that weren't coming. After she left, I pulled up her site again out of curiosity. She hadn't updated it in months. The designs were half-baked. The bio was still filled with buzzwords like artistic synergy and global aesthetic, and she had zero client work listed. She wasn't thriving. She was sinking, but she was too proud to admit it. I sat with that for a while, not out of joy, but clarity. They'd stolen from me to fund her success, but now that the money and support had dried up, she was flailing. Meanwhile, I was booked months out, turning down clients, and saving enough to make some serious moves. I was finally in a position to do something. Not to punish, but to set things right. The first step was requesting my full credit report. I needed documentation, every late payment, every delinquent notice from those 2 years of hell. I filed a dispute to have a fraud alert added to my file, even though the statute of limitations had passed to reverse the damage. The important part wasn't cleaning it up, it was establishing a paper trail. Then I reached out to a lawyer. A good one. Not to sue, but to draft a formal debt history letter. Something professional and legally sound that laid out, in brutal detail, how my identity had been used without consent and how I had since repaid every cent. I had it notarized, stamped, and filed. It wasn't for them. It was for later. Next, I went quiet. For about 6 months. During that time, I focused on expanding the business. I took on a commercial restaurant group that needed full network rewiring across 3 states. It was exhausting work, but it paid like nothing I'd ever touched before. That first 6-figure month, I didn't celebrate. I wired half into savings and used the rest to buy 2 things. First, a used but solid car. Not flashy, just reliable and mine. I still remembered the way Mom and Dad always let Sophia borrow the family car while telling me to take the bus. This car? No one else's keys but mine. Second, a small investment in a local commercial property, the kind of office space that needed renovation but with great potential. I partnered with a contractor friend and told him the goal was simple. Flip it, turn it into co-working space, rent it to boutique creatives. Then came the family barbecue. It was supposed to be casual. Burgers, beers, cheap plastic chairs. But I knew better. Every family gathering with my parents was an unspoken competition between what Sophia was doing and what I wasn't. Still, I went. Not to show off, just to observe. Mom was at the grill. Dad hovered near the cooler. Sophia was already 3 drinks in, talking about how she might be flying out to Paris next quarter and name-dropping fashion houses like she had them on speed dial. I sat, nodded, didn't say much. Let them fill the silence with half-truths. But as the sun dipped low and plates started to clear, my mom pulled me aside. "You've been quiet," she said. "Everything okay?" I shrugged. "Busy. Work's picking up." "Oh," she said, brushing her hair back. "You're still doing tech stuff, right?" It was the same dismissive tone she'd used when I told her about my first certification. Like it was cute, but not real. "Yeah," I said. "Own my own firm now." She blinked. "Firm?" "Yup. Clients in 3 states. Just bought a property too." There it was, that flicker of surprise. Not pride, not curiosity, just confusion. Before she could respond, I added, "You guys ever get that loan situation sorted?" She stiffened. "What loan?" "The one in my name," I said evenly. "You know, the one that tanked my credit?" "I paid it off. Whole thing. Took 3 years." Her face went pale, but she didn't speak. "I've got the statements," I added, just in case. "Connor," she started, but I raised a hand. "Don't. I'm not here for apologies." And I wasn't. Not really. Because in the end, this wasn't about making them sorry. It was about reminding myself that I wasn't what they thought I'd be. I wasn't a backup plan. I wasn't disposable. I was done waiting for permission to reclaim what they took. And soon, they'd realize just how far I'd come while they weren't looking. 2 weeks after the barbecue, my dad called me. That almost never happened. He usually relied on Mom to relay anything. even something as simple as bring dessert to dinner. So when his name popped up on my phone, I let it ring twice before answering. Hey, I said. He cleared his throat. Hey, Connor. Got a minute? I almost smiled. He never used my name when talking to me. It was always kid, or just nothing. Now he sounded like someone trying to walk back into a room they'd been locked out of. What's up? Well, your mom and I were just talking. We wanted to check in, you know, see how everything's going. It wasn't a check-in. It was fishing. He'd finally realized I wasn't just coasting. I was building. Things are fine, I said. Keeping busy with work. Business is good. There was a pause. I could practically hear him turning over what that meant. That's good, son, he said, like he was reading a script he didn't like. We're really proud of what you've done with the IT stuff. It hit me then. They had no idea what I actually did. They just knew it made money now, and suddenly they were interested. Then came the real reason for the call. Your sister's going through a rough patch, he said. That job she was hoping for fell through. Things in LA didn't pan out the way she thought they would. I stayed silent. He continued. She's thinking of coming back home for a while. Your mom and I were wondering if you had any space. Maybe let her crash for a bit, just till she gets back on her feet. It was wild. Absolutely wild. The same people who'd sunk me with debt to launch her into the clouds were now asking if she could land in my spare room. I exhaled slowly. Sorry, Dad. I'm using all the rooms in the house. Technically true. I had a guest room, but it was rented out to a friend of mine who traveled for business and needed a crash pad between cities. Dad didn't push. He knew better. He mumbled something about understanding and said he'd talk to Mom. We hung up, and that was it for a while. But I knew more was coming. By this point, my business was getting attention. We'd locked in another property, opened a satellite office in Denver, and I was invited to speak on a panel at a tech entrepreneur event in Austin. I wasn't famous, but in certain circles, I was becoming someone to know. And then, almost on cue, my sister popped back into my life. She messaged me on Instagram. No hi. No how are you? Just, do you know any tech people looking for a creative director? I need something stable. I'm kind of between things. I stared at the message for a long minute before typing back. I might. It wasn't a lie. One of my clients, a boutique marketing firm I'd helped digitize, had been looking for someone to consult on branding. Entry level. Low stakes. Nothing flashy. But it was paid, and it was remote. I gave her the email and said, tell them Connor referred you. She didn't even say thanks. Just like the message. I wasn't helping her because I forgave anything. I was helping her because it was the final thread. I wanted to see who she really was when no one was clapping anymore. She got the gig. 3 weeks in, the client called me, frustrated. Said Sophia missed 2 deadlines, didn't show up for a virtual meeting, and sent them a logo concept that was traced from Pinterest. They didn't want to fire her outright. They asked if I could talk to her first, maybe get her to step it up. So I did. I scheduled a Zoom meeting. Just me and her. Told her we'd be doing a quick, creative sync, since the client was requesting more cohesion. She showed up 10 minutes late, hair wet, eating from a Chipotle bowl, and said, sorry, I've been so slammed lately. I smiled. All good. We talked through her work. I asked her where she sourced her concepts. She got defensive. I asked if she felt like this kind of work was right for her, and she said, honestly, I thought it'd be more exciting. Then, I gave her a soft pitch. Would you want something more direct? Something more public-facing? Her eyes lit up. Like what? Speaking? Consulting? I might have a spot opening up, I said. High profile. Big name. You'd need to have your materials together, though. Updated portfolio, references, the works. She nodded, suddenly focused. I can do that. I gave her a week. She sent over a new deck with plagiarized taglines from known agencies and a resume that listed jobs she never held. I didn't say anything. I forwarded it to the client and let them make the call. They dropped her 2 days later. I didn't gloat. I didn't message her. I just waited. Because the final piece hadn't arrived yet. The part I'd been working toward since the day they used my name like it was worth less than hers. 2 days after she got dropped by the client, Sophia showed up at my office unannounced. She walked into the lobby like she owned the place. Dark sunglasses, that tired chic influencer outfit, and a fake confidence you could smell from across the room. My receptionist buzzed me, confused, and I told her to send Sophia in. She sat across from me in my office, arms crossed like she was the one who'd been wronged. That branding job fell through, she said. I nodded. Yeah, I heard. No warning, No explanation. It's like they were just looking for a reason to cut me loose. I didn't respond. Just let the silence hang. She continued. I was hoping maybe you had something else. Something more stable. There it was. The shift. For the first time in our lives, she needed me. Not because I was useful to her, not because she could spin a connection, but because she didn't have another door to knock on. I leaned back in my chair and said, I don't have anything open right now. Her mouth tightened. Seriously? You literally just posted a hiring announcement last week. She was right. I had posted something, but not for her. That role's already been filled, I said evenly. But if something opens up, I'll let you know. She didn't take that well. You know, for someone who acts so high and mighty about being treated unfairly, you're sure quick to shut the door on your own family. That hit harder than it should have. Not because it was true, but because it was familiar. That same tone our parents used whenever I didn't fall in line. That guilt-soaked implication that my refusal to forget made me the villain. I could have reminded her what she cost me, what they cost me. But instead, I just said, you should go, Sophia. I've got meetings. She left without another word, and I went back to work. Because what she didn't know was that my final move was already in motion. About 6 months earlier, I'd gotten a message from a former teacher of mine. He'd transitioned into nonprofit work and was helping local students navigate credit fraud and identity theft, especially the kind that happens within families. When I told him my story, he asked if I'd be willing to speak at a fundraising event. I said yes. That event turned into a feature article in a mid-sized financial literacy blog, then a short segment on a YouTube channel, then a podcast. The podcast got picked up by a finance TikTok creator with 1 million+ followers. And just like that, my story was out there. Not with names. I kept it vague. But the details, the timeline, the emotional wreckage, all real, all raw. And guess who found it? Yup. Sophia messaged me at 2 a.m. Is this about us? I didn't answer. Then Mom called. 3 times. Left a voicemail that started with, how dare you, and ended with, you're lucky we don't sue. I played it on speaker while finishing up my morning emails. Then came the family group chat, exploding with cousins, aunts, uncles, half of them angry, half of them stunned. Turns out when you tell your story truthfully, the people who wronged you assume it's defamation. But the truth? It doesn't care if it makes people uncomfortable. It just is. They could have left it alone. Could have let me move on. Let the story fade like everything else does in the 24-hour cycle. But instead, they doubled down. Dad sent me a long email defending their choice. Said I'd always been hard to read, and they figured Sophia had the better shot. Called it an investment they had to make. An investment. I read that line 3 times. Then I printed it, filed it with the debt letter. And finally, I drafted my response. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't angry. It was structured, clear, and final. I told them I was done, that the forgiveness they never asked for had already happened, but the relationship they took for granted wasn't coming back. I told them they could keep whatever version of me they needed to sleep at night, but the man I was now, he didn't belong to them. That letter sat in my drafts for a day, and then I hit send. That same week, a real estate agent called me back about a property I'd been eyeing. Small duplex on the east side of town, not flashy but clean. And guess who lived there? Yup, my parents. They'd moved out of our childhood home a year prior after the mortgage overwhelmed them. Now they were renting. I bought it in cash. Didn't raise the rent. Didn't evict them. Just let the lease roll over. But when it was time for renewal, I added one thing to the contract. A clause that allowed me to drop by unannounced for inspection with 24 hours notice. I never used it. I just wanted them to know that their landlord was the same kid they once called directionless. About 6 months after I bought the duplex, I sent my parents an official notice. Rent would remain unchanged for now, but all maintenance requests and correspondence would go directly through my property management firm, my firm. No big scene. No knock at the door. Just a quietly delivered letter in a plain white envelope. I didn't need confrontation. Just clarity. And they got the message. I heard from them less after that. Sophia stopped messaging entirely, which honestly helped. I wasn't trying to rub anything in. I didn't need a "you were right" moment. But I wasn't going to keep playing their game of fake smiles and rewritten history either. I focused on living. The business continued to grow. We opened another satellite office in Phoenix. I got invited to speak at a fintech startup conference in San Diego. I gave a talk on identity theft and resilience. And afterward, A woman approached me in tears and said her parents had done the exact same thing to her. That moment, it made everything worth it. The mess, the silence, even the years of digging myself out of a hole I didn't dig. The healing didn't come all at once. I won't pretend I didn't have bad nights. Sometimes I'd wake up from dreams where I was still trapped in that debt spiral, still begging credit card companies for a shot, still hearing my dad say, "Don't make a big deal out of this." But every morning I woke up in my own place, driving my own car, working my own schedule, reminded me, I made it, despite them. About a year after the last major blow-up, my mom sent a birthday card. It was light blue, folded unevenly, with a barely legible scribble inside. "Hope you're well. You always were a hard worker." Maybe we didn't say that enough. That was it. No apology. No ownership. Just vague acknowledgement like I was some mailman they forgot to tip. Still, I kept it. Not because I needed it, but because it was proof that even people who bury you under their decisions sometimes look up and realize you kept growing anyway. Meanwhile, Sophia was bouncing between freelance gigs. Her social media became quieter, the travel posts replaced by reshared memes and the occasional selfie with a sad filter. The friends she once flaunted stopped tagging her in stories. And the job offers? I didn't block them, but I watched the firms she applied to. A few were my clients. One forwarded me her resume without knowing the connection. I didn't say a word. I didn't even need to. Because eventually, her name stopped popping up altogether. A few months later, I was invited to speak at my old college. A panel for business majors titled, "What They Don't Teach You in Class." I almost declined. I hadn't stepped foot on that campus since the day I dropped out. But something in me needed to see it again, not as the kid who was told he wouldn't make it, but as the man who proved otherwise. When I walked onto the stage, there were maybe 50 students in the auditorium. Most had laptops open. One kid, sitting in the front, wore the same brand of hoodie I'd worn back then, tattered, too big sleeves, backpack barely holding together. He reminded me of me, and I couldn't help but smile. My speech was raw. I talked about the loan, the betrayal, the rebuilding. I didn't name names. Didn't need to. What mattered was showing that even when people who should protect you end up being the ones who hurt you most, there's still a way forward. After the talk, students came up with questions. A few asked about startup strategy, others about finances, but one girl came up last. She looked nervous. "My parents used my name for a car lease," she said quietly. "I'm 18. It wrecked my score, and I don't even have a license yet." I didn't say, "It'll get better." I didn't promise her justice. I said, "You're not alone. And this doesn't get to define your future." Because that's what I wish someone had told me. That evening, after the event, I walked around campus. Past the old dorms, the library, the cafe where I once got rejected from a tutoring job because my GPA wasn't competitive. I ended up near the financial aid office. There was a bulletin board out front, covered in flyers. Scholarships, tutoring services, housing notices. I saw a printed version of the podcast feature I'd been on. Someone had pinned it under a flyer for student debt counseling. I stood there for a long time. Then, I took a pen from my jacket pocket and scribbled on the edge of the page. "You are not what they did to you." See, a week later, I got a call from my lawyer. The final documents had gone through. Sophia had defaulted on her freelance business registration, and her LLC was officially dissolved. He asked if I wanted to bid on the abandoned brand. I said no, because this wasn't about taking more from her. It was about reclaiming what was mine, quietly, fully, without apology. So when people ask me now why I work so hard, why I keep pushing even after the money's good and the business is thriving, I tell them, because once someone decided I wasn't worth investing in, and I decided they were wrong.